absolutely insane stats. It's even more than my Magic and Nightblade. So, if we take a look at our unbuffed stats right now, it's obviously nothing special. But if I buff everything up, I can tell you right now, we're going to pop that, that, and that. We don't have the weapon enchant. So, you're going to see 38k stamina, 1.7k regen, and 3.5k weapon damage. Now, obviously with the enchant, that's about 4k on the weapon damage. The stamina recovery looks low, but one of our sets we're using is going to give us insane regen. And some of you might be able to guess the set already, some of you may be in the stream. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to burn all my stamina, and you're about to see how much regen. So remember, I have 38k stamina right now, and I'm going to cloak and watch how fast my stamina regens. This is the equivalent to about 6k stam regen right now. We're just using our siphoning text to stay in the Magicka. So, the sets we're using, 5-piece Shadow Walker, gives us weapon damage, max stamina, stamina recovery, and the 5-piece, the godsend of them all, restore 2,150 health and stamina every second while hidden and not moving. So, as a Nightblade, hidden is counted as invisibility. It's not stealth, it's not the same thing, though it will work in stealth. It's a bit different from Vice Cannon. Vice Cannon is supposed to be when you're stealthed, which is a different thing to invisibility, but this procs in Cloak. Even though Vice Cannon is currently bugged, this actually procs in Cloak, and it's meant to proc in Cloak because it is when you're hidden. So, you're thinking 2k regen, that's a lot, but in fact, this is not 2k regen. 150 regen in terms of a set every second is in fact 4.3k, because when we look at our recovery, 1.5k stamina regen is every 2 seconds. So what this set is actually doing is when we're in stealth, stationary, it's giving us 4.3k health recovery and stamina recovery. Now, do remember that our health is obviously halved in Battle Spirit, but the stamina is not. So we're still getting 2k health regen, which is quite a lot. We're then bringing 1 Kenner for the damage, 1 Bloodspawn. You could use 2 Veladrift if you have it. I haven't tested it, I just don't have it, because it's really a bitch to get. Using 3 Agility, all weapon damage, because we don't need to sustain. We're using 2 Lecky on the one-hand shield. You're going to need a Shadow Walker piece down here, because there is absolutely no point in having 2 Shadow Walker on the same bar. You could also run 2 Shadow Walker here and then 3 on the armor. Personally, I'm 4 on the armor, 2 on here. There's no point in having Shadow Walker on both bars because you only need to cloak and stay still on 1 bar, right? There's no sense in having it on both. But our other weapon is currently unsetted. Sorry, not unsetted. It is the Lecky Battle Axe, and that is pairing with our Lecky Guards. And then the Lecky Shield is pairing here. So you have 2 Lecky, 1 Kiana, 1 Bloodspawn, 5 of the Shadow Walker, and then 3 Agility. In terms of food, we're using Tri-Food, and my favorite potion for this would be the Knockback, Speed, and Stamina. The Speed gives us good sustain and survivability when moving around, and it's also giving us stamina back that we need. Because if we can't get into Cloak, we are going to need some way of getting stamina back. So we have Siphoning attacks and this potion, and generally it's okay if you're weaving medium attacks. We're then going to go into the skills. So on the skills, we're using a pretty generic setup. Ambush as a gap closer, Surprise Attack as a base DPS. We can get this tool to about 11k when we're fully buffed on the weapon damage, pretty high. We got Vigor as a heal, Cloak to proc our Shadow Walker and obviously to move around. And then we have Defensive Stance. This is, in my opinion, one of the best skills in the game. It gives us a Reflect, similar to a DK, reduces the cost of blocking, and it increases the amount of damage blocked. It's incredibly good for one skill, and it costs barely anything to cast. And the other 2 bits, the blocking and the reduction of damage when you're blocking, are just passive. We're then using Flawless Dawnbreaker here for the extra weapon damage, just to pump it up even more when we're weaving a light attack ability Bash. Bash is a lot of damage. Our Bash can hit 4 to 6k. Anyway, so up onto the other part, we're using Rearming Trap. This is an enormous dot. The skills are a little interchangeable. I personally like the trap because it is so good, and it's increasing our weapon damage for our rally because of the fighter skill passive by here, increase weapon damage by 3%. Siphoning attacks are sustained if we can't get into Cloak. It's also good to keep it up most of the time just in case, but it's generally pretty good. We're using Rally as our major heal, and it's also obviously a dot heal. Shuffle for the dodge, pretty obvious, pretty bullshit. And then we're using Fear for the CC. You could use Reverb here if you don't want to run Incap. Personally, Incap's kind of bullshit. We can hit 20k with this. If we're weaving an Incap into with the medium attack, the ability, the Incap, and then the Bash, it's pretty much an insta-kill. So the damage output is really insane with the Bash. In terms of the Mundus, we are using the Serpent. Again, if Cloak was perfect, you could run the Warrior here for the extra damage. But Warrior is not that much extra damage. In the end, I went for the Serpent just for the regen for whilst we can't Cloak. Because some situations, again, you may not be able to Cloak. You're going to have some trouble. Okay. Now we're going to move on to champion points. There's some weird-ass shit going on here. 85 in Warlord, we want to reduce our stamina cost pretty high because our base regen is pretty low, even though we're getting high regen in the set. It's not going to be scaled by the points here. So we want to reduce the cost rather than regen. It gives us better gain per point. 13 into Magician. I've considered making this 22 before because obviously we need to sustain the cloak pretty well for the sustain. And then bashing, we have a decent amount of points in there because most of the time we're going to do light attack ability bash because the bash is 4k extra damage every attack. It's serious amount to the burst. We have a few points in stamina recovery, but again the base is so low that it's not that important. And then we have quite a few points mixed up here. We have 22 in reduction cost of blocking. Even with only 22, with the amount of stamina I have, I can actually tank a decent amount of group perma blocking for a really long time. And then we have 22 in tumbling for situations where dodging is more appropriate. In the blue tree, we have 13 in blessed. I nearly always have this on stamina just for the extra healing on the vigor. 17 and 13 here. It doesn't matter what you put in here, but make sure you're getting 30 because you get this riposte passive. This gives you a 15% chance to return 5.7k damage when you're blocking a melee attack. It's a pretty big buff, and most of the time when you're going to bash, you end up blocking something. It's quite a nice dot to get extra, and it's not battle scaled down, so it's a very decent amount of damage. In this tree, we're mostly stacking Mighty. You could mix this up a little bit, I guess. I haven't really played with it much. Some points into armor penetration. We're running surprise attacks, so armor penetration is pretty high anyway, but you can obviously stack that in, and then we're running precise strikes for the extra on the crit in case we get it. In the red tree, we have 51 in crit resist. Now the reason we have this is we want our resistances high. We're trying to play a pretty tanky build that puts out decent damage. 2.1k crit resist, which is pretty darn good in the end. You don't need more than that, and we're running infused on the big pieces, impen on the small to compensate for that. In the rest of the red tree, we then have a good mixture in here, 22 in dots, 60 and 38 here, 60 in the physical, because there's generally more physical than Magicka builds, and we can reflect a lot of the Magicka. And then we also are unlocking the Unchained passive, which is just super good, 8% cost reduction when we're using a stamina skill after a CC. Finally, we have 6 in quick recovery, just for the extra healing, because we have the point spare. But I think that covers everything. So, if you guys have enjoyed the build video, please hit a like, enjoy the content. I build plenty more build videos. I will bring some 1vx clips out with this. Though right now Nightblade is currently my focus because I'm thoroughly enjoying that build as well. Both builds are great. It's just my playstyle is more in Magicka, but either of these will work very, very good. The regen's insane, the sustain's insane, and I will release some clips with this as well. So take care. Thank you everyone for watching, and good luck with the build.